What's up, Gator Nation? Welcome into the latest Gators Online Show, and Happy New Year as Zach and Nick join you for the first time in 2024. Hope your break was almost as good as ours. We both had some time away, but not too much because there's been a lot of news happening in Gainesville on the football front, certainly on the basketball front. Nick's even gearing up for baseball as much as it's crazy to imagine. But we are here for the spring. We got a lot to discuss on today's episode about things happening involving spring. All the guys that are here from the 2024 class that have started the spring semester this week. Florida starting offseason workouts with their new strength coach and a lot of new staff hires that are now filled. So we'll get into a lot of it as well as some transfer portal talk because that's still happening as well. Nick, how are you, my friend?
Doing well. Yeah, like you said, basketball is in full swing, keeping your attention. And so with classes starting on Monday, that meant baseball is back on the field. And we're 30, just over a month until baseball season gets going, which keeps me busy until June.
Which means you need to take some PTO.
Yeah. I need to get away at some point in January.
Yeah, it's obviously this time of year it can be fun and also busy for us once we get into like March and you got March Madness, spring football going on, baseball started. Right now we just kind of get to watch as all the dust settles from the transfer portal. We still got guys going in though. Just here on this Thursday, Florida had Manny Nunnery enter the transfer portal. He becomes, make sure I get this right, Nick. Yeah, that is the 20th scholarship player from the 2023 roster that is now hit the portal. So a lot of changes. And again, we'll get to more of that on the back half of the show as we kind of assess Florida's 2024 class, what they've added, what they've lost in terms of these roster departures, and then what they still need to add. A few spots left, and they're trying to recruit guys at a few positions. So we'll get into all that. Before we do that, I want to give a shout out to My Perfect Franchise and all that they do for our show as we bring in the new year. And definitely want to encourage Florida fans that are ready to leave the corporate rat race for the American dream, looking for a side hustle while working your current job, wanting to diversify, build wealth, and or leave a legacy. Andy can help. He's a franchise consultant as well as a franchise owner and helps people find franchises that fit their skill sets, financial requirements, time to commit, and more. His services are 100% free. He's here to help. If you have any questions about business ownership, you can contact him anytime at myperfectfranchise.net or calling or texting him at 404-973-9901. Well, Nick, we got a lot to discuss here since the last time that we had a show. There's been some new additions, some official, some still not yet official that we can talk about. But right now, as it stands, the coaching staff openings and then some of the more prominent off the field openings have been filled. There is still more hires to be made because there's a new department that's being created in U.S. football program. So there's a lot to discuss, but I think, Nick, it's important for us to maybe go with the most recent news, and that is Ron Roberts, the Auburn defensive coordinator, set to join Billy Napier's staff. It has not officially been announced yet, but he is on his way to Gainesville with some pretty prominent titles as he joins the defensive side of the ball as executive head coach of the defense, co-defensive coordinator, and linebackers coach. He fills the vacancy left by Jay Bateman, who left to be DC at Texas A&M, and is a reunion not only for Billy Napier and Ron Roberts, but also Ron and Austin Armstrong, who were at Louisiana together. Thoughts on this hire, Nick, and kind of what this does for the defensive side of the ball?
We're back to some very creative titles for executive head coach of the defense. That's an interesting one. I think Ron Roberts is a great coach. I think he's got a lot of experience. The one thing for me would be, we can say him and Austin Armstrong have a relationship because Austin Armstrong coached under him, but what's that dynamic? Now you've got
Sure.
a coach who's older and was almost a mentor. And now the protege is the defensive coordinator. You're the executive head. What's the dynamic there? Is Ron Roberts going to call the defense? Is Austin Armstrong going to call the defense? And I think,
are they both going to call the defense?
well,
Do they
listen,
have a relationship where they can, hey, you take this series, or I mean, who knows, right? These are questions that we have.
Yeah, and I think it would be wise to have. Obviously, they'll both be on headsets, but one of them to be on the field and one of them to be in the box. You just get a kind of a whole different view. And last year, you really only had Jay Bateman and Mike P up in the box, I think. They have a team of analysts and graduate assistants.
Well, Mike P was on the field too. I forget who was the other, but Bateman was definitely in the box, which is where I would assume.
Stapleton. Sorry, Stapleton was in the box because Sale's down in the field. To me, it would make sense to have more eyes up in the box. It's a different view. You get to see really the all 22 as opposed to standing on the sidelines. You did that a bunch this year, Zach, and you miss some stuff when you're standing field view, especially when you're 6 foot, but Florida's got some guys who are 6'8".
Yeah,
and you
can't see over them.
You can get stuck behind somebody. Florida's offensive line blocking Zach on the sideline better than they blocked the defensive lineman. You're probably easier to block.
I got some slipperiness to myself.
I stand by what I said. You're easier to block. It'll be interesting to me to see what that dynamic is, and I don't know that we'll see it really until spring football to see how they interact with each other on the field. Because it's easy to say, hey, they know each other, and that's going to be great. Ron Roberts knows the defense because it's a version of his defense. That's where Austin Armstrong learned. I just want to see, hey, does the older coach understand that, hey, this is the 31. I think Austin Armstrong will be 31 when the next season starts. Does the 31-year-old coach feel like, hey, am I breathing down my neck, or how does it work? I guess is my question.
Yeah, and also too, there were some options there that Napier could consider. One for multiple linebacker coaches that were in the mix. He could have also moved Austin to linebackers coach and brought in another DBs coach. He goes this direction, and I think obviously going into a pivotal year, Nick, he's made some changes which we can talk about in the program, and decided to shake up some things, and obviously sees areas where he needed to make adjustments. But he's also now with the defense, not only for the last 2 years under him, but it's been several years where Florida defense has just not been up to par. Really, kind of since that 2019 was like the last semblance of a top 10 defense. There were some elite players on that unit, but really since those defenses in 15, 16, obviously some of the must-champ defenses, like Florida hasn't had that in forever, and they're not going to get probably to that level. But they need to do something to address that side of the ball. And I think Billy being able to lean on somebody that he's not only worked for, but is a veteran in this industry and a veteran on that side of the ball, it can be beneficial, especially if everybody can be in harmony and that works. Maybe this ends up being a really good thing for Austin. I'm fascinated about how, I think, and this is obviously a different dynamic, but there's some similarities, Nick. But I think of when, Brian Johnson became the offensive coordinator at Florida, but even before that, he had the official title. Like Dan would come out and say, like, "Oh yeah, Brian called that play," and we let Brian, that was Brian's, idea. And I think Austin probably can have a little bit more influence in that in this situation, but I do think that because they have history and there's probably mutual respect there, there could be, a scenario where they both are involved in the game planning and the play calling. Obviously if he's the executive of the defense, he probably has that seniority, but I don't anticipate Austin just being completely out of that process. But we'll find out.
And one thing when we put out, like linebacker coach hot boards, people are like, what do you mean Austin Armstrong? I thought, until Ron Roberts became available and whatever happened in Auburn led to him leaving or wanting to leave or them wanting him to leave, whatever the case may be, out in the plains, Austin Armstrong coached linebackers. Nick Saban, the GOAT who just retired, thank God, hired Austin Armstrong to coach linebackers. And I think this was not the first time Austin Armstrong had coached a different position. It wasn't the first time that he had called a defense, but I think it's a whole different level at the University of Florida in the SEC than it is at Southern Miss. And I think it's just a lot on his plate. So I thought if you can find a safeties coach who you like and who is a good recruiter and a good teacher, then, yeah, it makes a ton of sense to move Austin Armstrong down. And I think that was absolutely still in consideration before Ron Roberts becomes available. And when you can get a coach with that track record and that resume, you say, yeah, sure. Hey, Austin, you already coached safeties last year. You can keep doing it, right? Sure.
Mm-hmm. And, obviously with that hire, and then you also got Gerald Chapman as well, Will Harris. Now your openings on the defensive side are set. We will figure out, and this will be another conversation for another show, but what happens here at the end of the month once some contracts expire and what might Florida do on the offensive side of the ball if there are any potential staff changes. That is something that they're still out there as a possibility. But as it stands right now, Nick, with the changes that have been made from a coaching standpoint and then off the field, when you consider a new strength coach that was hired, 2 other new strength coaches that were brought in as well, one of which is also the team nutritionist, and then now the Mark Robinson role, which you reported about in our war room yesterday at Gators Online. What are your just overall thoughts on the hires so far that Billy's made? We had a thread going on Gators Online, with one fan giving his opinion, but what do you feel about some of the issues that he has addressed and some of the hires that have been made?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is that there was, and I think it's probably just coming out of anger and frustration, this narrative that Billy won't get rid of his friends. The biggest one to me is changing your strength and conditioning coach. The SC coordinator, the strength guy, is your off-season head coach. Mm-hmm. The NCAA limits how much the 10, 11, when you count the head coach, the 10, 11 coaches can be around the team and what activities they can be involved in from the time the season ends up until spring practice, and then from spring all the way to fall camp. Your strength and conditioning coach is essentially your head coach more than your head coach in terms of just time on the calendar. So when you see guys hire a strength coach, like if Urban Meyer were to take over at, I keep using this analogy, New Mexico or New Mexico State, Mickey Marotti's leaving Ohio State to go to Urban. Like, that's Urban Meyer. That's his guy. And Urban would ask Mick to do that. That's the kind of relationship you have, and you have to have that kind of trust in a strength and conditioning coach, because you're turning your team over to them every offseason, and your team is your lifeline. And if your team is not doing well enough, you're not going to have a job, and you and the strength guy will be on to the next one. So that to me shows that Billy is serious about looking at the program and giving it, an unbiased read and unbiased review and making changes necessary. And I know that there were players that voiced concerns, and that turned into recruits who are listening to the players that they're going to be joining, voicing concerns. And I think that to me was a big step for Billy Napier, and shows me, okay, he's not going to just stick with my guys and hey, what we're doing hasn't worked, but it will. And we don't need to change anything.
Yeah, and also too, just even with this conversation that we've been having about the DC situation, who might call plays on that side of the ball, like if that is in any way taken away from Austin, or Ron takes over some of those responsibilities, or it's a coordinated effort. However it plays out, like, that's a tough conversation that he's got to have with Austin, and he's willing to do it for the betterment of the defense in his program. And to your point, it shows that he's going to make the necessary changes, even if that's going to upset some folks. And one other aspect of this with some of these hires as well is there's a lot of NFL here, right? You're bringing Will Harris from the NFL, but then off the field to have, Pat Fitzgerald, he's bringing in one of his guys as well, from the Giants, which we reported at first at Gators Online, and then the team nutritionist as well, also from the NFL. And then you got in Mark Robinson to now lead this front office role in kind of like an NFL style front office. What do you think about these pro teams here and what that can mean for the program?
Yeah, I think it's interesting to me because when I think of, NFL nutrition, a lot of these guys have like their own nutritionist, I would imagine. I've never covered the NFL, so I don't really know what that's like, but those guys work out like outside the building a ton. They're probably only working out inside the building during that time. But I mean, for the longest time, you've looked at Florida, and I've seen the fans and message board, social media. Florida's smaller, slower, weaker, and that's spanning a couple of strength staff. So I think this will be negative Nick or wait and see Nick is just like, sure, the new strength coach is always better than the old strength coach, and the new nutritionist is always better than the old nutritionist. Why? I don't know. I don't have a degree in nutrition or kinesiology. So I think you have to see the proof is in the pudding, and the proof is going to be on Saturdays in 2024. And are you still getting pushed around?
Yeah, and that'll bring us into our next segment, because the Gators have started offseason workouts, and the foundation phase is underway, although I don't know if it's still called that. But we'll get into kind of that. And
switching up the 8 phases, Heck?
Who knows? Maybe they make
renaming the phases.
We'll find out. But I also want to make sure that you guys find out about Prairie Dental Center. Want to encourage all Florida fans to go check that out if you're in the Gainesville area. The doctor is a UF grad who's practiced in Gainesville for 3 decades and has developed a deep understanding of how to diagnose and treat various dental problems, along with advanced skills and knowledge to provide more effective and efficient care to his patients. If you have dental concerns or just need a cleaning, Prairie Dental Center offers a wide range of options to meet your needs. Give their office a call at 352-373-3431. Tell them Gators Online sent you, and your new patient exam will be free. And as we mentioned, off-season workouts are underway, as is the spring semester. The Gators had a lot of guys make their way to campus. Another huge, crop of mid-year enrollees, almost 20 that were there Sunday. More that are coming as these transfers kind of make their way to Florida and, all transfer all their credits. You had some guys that weren't able to start right on Monday. But as of now, Nick, once all those guys do get here, like Pup Howard, Devin Manuel, some of the more recent commits, they're going to have 23 mid-year enrollees, 14 of them recruits, 9 transfers. One of those 9 is JUCO transfer, Brian Taylor. But that's a pretty good crop of players that you're adding to this team. And
when you said JUCO, I got that a little PTSD from the math credit. I was waiting for you to be like, it's that junior college math credit. Kept another one out. That don't know what the credit is, but hopefully those days are gone.
Oh man! Hey, shout out to the junior colleges. They're a great bridge. They help students like me that didn't have quite the GPA that they needed to come out of high school, Nick. What's that?
Same with me.
I know. So obviously these guys had the GPA to be able to make it, and they are now taking classes at UF. All the freshmen made it. There were no transcript issues, some guy not making it at the last second. Everything was smooth sailing, and that includes DJ Lagway and LJ McCray. And I talked to one program source, Nick, and said that, just like having those guys on the first day in the facility walking around, just that alone it just creates some buzz. Here are these two like premier 5-star signees, and a lot of hoopla, a lot of storylines and stuff leading all throughout the recruitment. And now they've actually made it to campus, and they're here for off-season workouts in spring. And especially a guy like LJ is going to have a chance to, I think, have an impact right away.
Yeah, it's interesting. DJ, obviously being the quarterback, the 5-star plus athlete, gets all the headlines, but you get Graham Mertz back, and I think you figure out ways to get DJ involved. Certainly, it'll be all eyes on DJ. Graham might appreciate having DJ on campus, at least in the spring, because it'll be all eyes on DJ all spring. But I think LJ McCray is the guy, and I said it over and over and over again leading up to signing day. Like, this is the type of athlete, the type of prospect, the type of player you need to get, and you beat the teams that you need to beat in order to get him. If you want to catch the Alabama, Georgia, even Texas A&M recruiting, Tennessee's recruiting better than Florida. If you want Texas, Oklahoma, welcome, boys. If you want to catch those teams. So for me, it's LJ McCray is also in like a pretty busy room. You get Justice Boone back there. You've got Kelby Collins, TJ Searcy. I'll be interested to see what they do with. I think Searcy's more of a prototypical edge. Kelby Collins is bigger. Does he grow out of that position? I think he still athletically can do it, but
I even wonder if they'll play him some inside.
Yeah, does he grow more into more of a defensive tackle? That's a busy room. But you're talking about a young man in high school who is 6'6" and 237 pounds.
Yeah, he's a beast. And it was cool, Nick. I also heard, the first day they start and they have their team meeting, and all the new guys on the team stand up and they introduce themselves to everybody on the team. And they have to say their name, their hometown, their position. And when it was Caden Daniels' turn from West Point, Mississippi, he stood up and let the room know his name, where he was from, and then said, "And I run the ball." And the whole room busts out laughing because it was a really cool moment. He didn't have to say his position. He was just very, very descriptive and just saying, "I run the ball." And he understood the assignment, Nick. And I think you get him and Jaden Baugh in here to pair with Montrell Johnson, who we expect back. And
he's got 4 days. He's got 4 days,
baby.
But he's appearing in some Florida Victorious community service tweets today. So, listen, I just saw a tweet the other day, Zach, that only 34 underclassmen have declared for the NFL draft this year. And that number was over, I can't remember, but that was way over 34. You're seeing guys like Montrell Johnson, who prior to NIL would just been like, why would I come back and carry the ball 150 times?
Yeah.
Maybe get hurt. I need to get to the NFL and get to a second contract potentially. You're seeing NIL keep guys in college. So NIL, as much as we argue that, hey, this is bad for football, you're getting better players to stay for extra years, which I think would positively impact the game, despite everything else that happens with it.
Yeah, and it is too. Like you've seen that kind of across the sport, Nick. A lot of guys coming back for their senior years, and I was just talking to an Ohio State fan today that they got some guys that I think they had written off as going to be draft entries that are coming back. It's just it's a different day and age, but obviously that creates a good situation for Florida's running back room, given who they lost to the portal. And that's obviously a room that doesn't need too much improvement this year in off-season workouts. There are other positions that do, though, Nick, and this is going to be an important time with a new strength staff, with a new regimen. I think some different style workouts. Shout out to Keith Niebuhr, who already went on our Gators Online message board and dropped some nuggets about the early impressions on these off-season workouts. And I don't want to just give it all away. I want to encourage you guys to go to our Swamp Talk message board and read it. And you can get in the door at Gators Online for just $1 to read not just scoop like that, but all of the coverage that we have on our site. But look, Keith led this off by saying, there's one truth in college football. It's this: the new strength coach is always better than the last one. So, take what he posted with a grain of salt. But the initial impressions, Nick, to Fitzgerald and his workouts have, I think, got the attention of the players, and I think more specifically is addressing maybe an area that they felt was lacking. And what are some spots that you feel like they really need to make some gains? And obviously, I'm sure we can start on the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, and watch. I watched, and my best man. You loved his speech at the wedding, Zach. My best man, and another one of my
classic.
It's just a roast. My best man and another one of my groomsmen both went to Michigan. So in our group chat, they're talking a lot about Michigan, and Michigan played at noon a lot. Florida did not have many noon games. Still working out the bags under those eyes from last season. I think I watched a ton of Michigan, and when I watched Michigan on Monday in the national championship, they won the game at the line of scrimmage. Georgia, when Florida lost to Georgia won that game at the line of scrimmage. When Florida lost to Arkansas, they lost that game at the line of scrimmage. That's a huge thing. And is it just talent? Is it something you can coach and teach and develop? Is it just size? Like, hey, we're not big enough. I think you've got players, and there's something to Florida playing really well down the stretch in games and the fourth quarter in games. That tells me that you are conditioned well. But if you're still getting pushed around, if you're getting pushed around for all four quarters, but you're still fresh in the fourth, like, hey, maybe we need to tweak something and find a way to not get pushed around for four quarters, but still be fresh at the end of the game.
Yeah. So I think some emphasis on these lift sessions, and we'll see what type of gains show up as the off season goes. If we see any pictures or any type of gains like that once we get into fall camp. But that process is underway. There is now a new head strength coach leading the Gators through off-season workouts. There's also, like I said, 2 new strength coaches on staff under him, and a pair of changes that Billy Napier made there as well. And one of the new strength coaches, again, is also the team nutritionist, and that's Jake Sankel. We were first reported that hire at Gators Online, coming over from Washington after 8 years. And what's unique about him, Nick, is that he was the team nutritionist and assistant strength coach for the Commanders. And that's the same role that he has with the Gators. In the NFL, he was one of only two. He was part of one of only 2 teams that had somebody in a role like that, where they were the team nutritionist, but also on the strength staff. And he talks about that in this interview from 2017, saying that he works right alongside the strength coaches, trains the players, make sure that they're physically prepared, but then he's also walking over and being part of their meal process and kind of getting in the kitchen with them. It's interesting, this dynamic too, because I got to see it kind of up close last year of how they had it set up, with the previous Kelsey Gomes working with Mark Hockey. There was obviously a working relationship there, but it's going to be a different dynamic now with Jake Sankel and Pat Fitzgerald, because he's going to be working directly with him, and or Craig Fitzgerald, excuse me. Being able to kind of be through all these off-season workouts, see the guys as they're out there on the field, and then come into the nutrition area with them, be part of their meal prep, make sure that they're doing the right things. Just being honest, a nutritionist role, especially when they're trying to get guys to eat certain things or follow certain meal plans or be on a strict diet, it can be very tough. And if you're not with them a lot and your only interaction with them or time around them is in the nutrition area, or when it's time to have team meals, most of the guys might do a good job of listening to you and following the guidelines that you're giving them, but not all of them will be. And some of them obviously need some nudges and some encouragement. And I think to have Senkel in this unique role, I would only imagine is going to help make managing that a lot easier for the nutritionist. Because there's going to be a little bit more of a relationship there with the players. He's going to be around them more than Kelsey was, and most nutritionists are. And if that makes his job easier, that probably makes Craig Fitzgerald's job easier, and could make for a better product. But that is something that's unique about Jake coming over.
Yeah, walking through a practice, in the fall when it's 98 degrees, and look at somebody and be like, had some honey buns back at the apartment, didn't you? It's not on the meal plan. Or like when I was in college, one of our coaches, we were doing a morning run. He said, smells like whiskey out here. And we were like, yeah, well, we had a party last night, coach. Did not think about morning run at all. It will be interesting to see. It's certainly, bringing in a lot of different NFL head coaches. These guys aren't in recruiting roles, do not have a big part in recruiting other than setting up their systems. And then the systems, the players will speak to the recruits about, hey, we like this. We like this lifting program. We like what the nutritionist does. And then the results speak for themselves.
They do. And obviously those results over the past 2 years indicated that a change needed to be made. It's something that fans had been calling for, and it's something that Billy has put in place. So we'll see what that looks like over the next few months. We'll get to see these guys once they hit the field for spring ball and kind of how they work with the team. But definitely looking forward to seeing how that plays out in 2024. Want to get to our final ad read before we give you guys our final segment. And want to encourage all Florida fans to go check out rogueshop.com. If you have issues sleeping, chronic pain, and or anxiety and stress, Rogue Shop sells CBD, THC, edibles, smokables, and vapes, as well as handcrafted bath salts, soaps, candles, and more. Rogue Shop is a true small business with 5 employees and make all of their products with their own cannabis grown in their manufacturing facility. Visit rogueshop.com. That's ROGUESHOP.com. And we were mentioning some of the early enrollees for the Gators. 14 high school recruits that they have added from their 2024 class. They will have 3 more that enroll in the summer. Amir Jackson, Aaron Childs, and Marcus Maskell are the only guys that are not here right now. The rest of them, along with the transfers, are now here and going to go through spring ball, going to go through these offseason workouts. Nick, we have now had National Signing Day. We've had a slew of transfers that have been added since signing day. Some pretty big ones, too, for the Gators, like Grayson Pup Howard. What are your just overall thoughts on this class, high school and transfer, and kind of what impact it can make and needs to make?
Yeah, I see a lot of like the what's it called? People are trying to throw the Billy Napiers. If you can't sign 25 good football players, then they'll find somebody else to coach.
I think people are reading so hard into that of like, it had to be 25 high school recruits. Nobody's signing 25 high school recruits anymore, people.
I mean, you could.
It's not happening across the board like that, though.
No. So I think you have to include the transfer portal, and then if you do, Florida's over that already. I think Florida's hit on some needs. I still think offensive line's a big need.
Guard.
Maybe, yeah. I don't know I mean, tackles a need still, too. I don't know that.
But you have tackles, though. You have, options. You don't have a lot of options at guards.
I mean, but if your options are bad options, then then you still need to get better there. So I think you need a. I love the addition of Joey Slackman. I think I really like the addition of DJ Douglas. I know people are like, "Oh, he's a walk on at Bama." He's a fifth-year player now. That was a long time ago. I think I like that addition. Chimere DK is interesting. He's going to start at receiver unless you can get something else in the transfer portal.
Yeah.
Didn't have a great 2023, but you go back to 2022 when Graham Mertz is throwing him the ball. And listen, the numbers aren't crazy, but you have to consider that it's Wisconsin, and passing and receiving numbers are never going to be crazy there.
Yeah.
But there's that established connection, that timing, that relationship is already there. I think you could obviously stand to get another receiver, another threat to add to that room. But that's at the is that at the detriment of developing Andy Jean and Andy Mizell? I don't know. You get Keon Zipperer back, unless I guess he could transfer. I think he should be graduating maybe in the spring. He's been here. This will be his 6th year. Yep. So overall, I think you got your quarterback of the future. You got a massive win in DJ Lagway. You picked up some pieces. There is still time and need to address other positions, mainly offensive line, in my opinion. You got linebacker and Pup Howard. I think you've gotten safeties and Bridges and Douglas. I think you're okay at cornerback with all the young guys. I think Jalen Kimber leaving is a lot of that is Florida telling Jalen Kimber, like, hey, we've got a lot of young guys, and there's gonna be a lot of reps going to the Dijon Johnsons. Devin Moore, who's not a young guy anymore. I mean, based on time spent on the field, very young, but on paper, not young anymore. So I think there's a lot of young guys, Jakeem Jackson, Aaron Gates, Sharif Denson, that need to get reps, and Florida will go younger there. So I think the biggest thing for me is always going to be the line of scrimmage, and until it is fixed, it needs to get fixed.
Yeah, and that's you mentioned Sharif Denson. That's, I think, one of my questions, and still, what do they do there at the star spot? I think that they'll have no trouble fielding their starting corners. You now have more options at safety, but do you go with a second-year sophomore in Denson, who will still be very green, I think, early in the year, but is very talented? Is he ready to step into that star role? Do you potentially have DJ Douglas play there, or Bridges play there? I think both of those guys probably have some position flexibility where they could line up at that spot. So I feel like because of that, the options are there. I think that they've gotten now enough edge players. You lost Princely Uman-Mielen. There's not an obvious guy behind him that was going to now step in and start. So I think that needed to probably be addressed through the portal, which they have. But I would think that maybe Jack Pyburn or TJ Searcy are probably still going to be in line, maybe to potentially win that job. But we'll see. I'm with you, though. I think wide receiver and offensive line is still where you could use some upgrades there. And just more depth too. If you don't even bring a guy at one of those spots to start, like to me they don't have enough guards. Like, they are going to have to move one of their tackles or maybe two of their tackles to guard if they don't go get more guards in the portal. So whether that's moving, which I wrote about at Gators Online, Cam Waits, Damian George have both played guard in the past. I think maybe Austin Barber could do it if they wanted to, but do they keep him at tackle or move him back to right? Or, I mean, there's a lot of, there's a lot that we don't know of what they're going to do. But I'm sure that they would love to have another interior lineman just to give them some more depth there. But, for the most part, Nick, they don't have too many more spots that they need to address. I mean, they're kind of at the point now where they got who they got. They also need to save a few spots to just see, hey, what does appear in the portal in the spring. I don't think that you can count on landing anybody as a starter, but you never know, right? I mean, in this day and age, you never know who might pop up. So right now, Florida, with the news on Manny Nunnery, they're at 81 scholarship players for 2024. So they got some room to work with. They could still theoretically also add maybe another high school recruit on National Signing Day, but I don't think that is something that's expected. So any more additions most likely are going to come from the transfer portal. And as we've talked about, probably at those positions. And I think it's important. We cannot forget that there's still one position, Nick, that could be addressed as well through the transfer portal, and that is quarterback.
No, I mean, I think people didn't understand right after the season ended, and I put out right when the transfer portal opened, I put like positions of need. I was like quarterback, and I didn't make it the highest priority, but quickly identified like, hey, Florida. As soon as
that was before you'd reported on Jack Miller.
Yeah. I was like, hey, that's Max Brown's in, so now you're only going to have 3, and Jack Miller, if he wants to play football, it's not going to be at the University of Florida. You already lost out your starting job to a quarterback in Graham Mertz. They just signed and recruited over you. They signed the future. You've got 2 years of eligibility left. You're not going to play either of those 2 years at Florida. If you want to play football, it's got to be somewhere else. So, like, early on, I could see Florida's going to have 2 scholarship quarterbacks, and that's like a 5-alarm fire.
And that's why you've seen them already addressing this. With preferred walk-on spots.
It's tough.
Aiden Warner.
I'm sure Florida fans would want, hey, go and get the best quarterback available. What are you selling the best quarterback? Like, hey, you're going to be Graham Mertz's backup. And if Graham Mertz has like a season-ending injury, the freshman's going to play. So like what are you selling to somebody to come here? You're just in a bad spot to try to recruit quarterbacks out of a transfer portal because you had 2 leave.
You are not going to get a lot of guys that bite on what you have to serve. I mean, look, it is what it is. I mean, you've gotten yourself in a really good situation with your future and with your present, but because of some losses from the transfer portal and other, I mean, like they've had obviously a lot of, be nice to have Jaden Rashad or somebody else, but like they don't. They've had a lot of guys that have moved on, and they got to address it. If they can find 1 or 2 preferred walk-ons that were scholarship players at group of 5 schools and can come and provide you with more depth, then maybe that's going to be what it has to be. They've already landed Aiden Warner, who was at Yale last year. He has joined the program as a preferred walk-on, and also Christian Hunt, Arkansas State quarterback transfer that Nick first reported on. He's also strongly considering a PWO offer from the Gators. So that's kind of where that stands. I mean, if somehow somebody becomes available that would, that's got that Cam Carroll attitude that's like, I don't care, I'm coming. They're gonna give me a scholarship. I'm coming to play at Florida. Then maybe they could add another quarterback in the spring. But we'll see here, Nick. Still holding out hope, I think, for DJ Douglas maybe are the Gators. Yam Banks is another transfer that they hosted. I don't think many more decisions that they're waiting on, though.
No, there is something interesting. So, like the players at Michigan and players at Washington have, I think, till the end of the week to get into the portal. Everybody, the portal literally just reopens whenever you have a coaching change. So anybody on Alabama's roster, shout out to Harrison Vale out there in Vale, just living the dream. The powder in Vale right now, my guy, you have to be on the slopes. Get off of YouTube. We appreciate you being here. Like and subscribe. We definitely know you're subscribed, but hit like and then, bro, go hit the slopes. I'd be out there right now. It's Jameer Grimsley, who you were in it for, had the quote like, the thing that you're always going to get at Alabama is Nick Saban. You're on campus for 4 days and Nick Saban's gone. So Alabama players have 30 days to jump into the portal because of their head coaching change. And then obviously if any of the other dominoes happen, those guys would have a chance. So it just goes back to the college calendar being an absolute utter disaster. The portal was supposed to be closed, and here we are, January 11th. One of the best teams in the country. Portal's back open for them.
Yeah, and there's still action happening. There still could be some more additions. And look, we talked at the front of the show about Billy filling the staff openings. That's where things stand now. We got this comment from Kobe about OC and special teams coordinator. How is that filled? Well, Kobe, right now at this time, both of those positions are currently filled on the staff. There is a special teams coordinator on staff employed, and there's an offensive coordinator on staff employed. So until there's changes there is nothing to fill.
Hit the company line, Zach. There is no position to fill.
But if you want to be subscribed at Gators Online and read our new and latest war room that we put out this week, you can get in there for just $1. You can actually read about any potential changes on the offensive side of the ball, specifically about a potential play caller and where that could stand after this month is over. So that's all I'll say about that. But there is nothing right now. All the openings on the staff from a coaching standpoint have been filled. And that's where it's at. So, but I don't think all the needs have been filled for the 2024 class. Maybe one or two more guys that join here before the February signing day, or maybe the rest of the spots will be filled in the spring. But as of now, the Gators, they're doing their off-season workouts. They've started spring classes, and their staff is in place, Nick, as we turn the page on 2024. Here we go. Another year, my friend.
Another year. I'm sure spring football will be here before we know it. Quick update, Zach. We're going to do until baseball starts. You get the last 5-ish minutes here to talk about Todd Golden and the basketball team. Your boy Princely was in attendance in Oxford for a pretty disastrous second half for the Florida Gators, who fall to Ole Miss. Winning on the road in the SEC is tough, but certainly not the kind of defensive effort you'd want to see from the Gators.
Yeah. You let a team shoot 21 of 28 in the second half, 75%, go on a 20-5 run on the road in the SEC. You're not going to win many games. And, it was just a really disappointing performance for the Gators coming off of what was a really impressive effort against number 6 Kentucky. Obviously, the Gators had the winning streak in December, felt like they had, found some momentum and obviously looked good to open SEC play, but they did not look good in their first road test of the season in conference. And, it wasn't just, on the defensive end as well. They had some turnovers, some bad ones at times. I think 13 total for the game. Obviously, spells where they didn't have enough production on the offensive end. You got another 23-point game from Walter Clayton and Zion Pullen played well. And shout out to Alex Condon, man, 15 rebounds along with 11 points. But not enough from some of the other guys offensively. Riley Kugel, probably the most quiet night from him. He didn't even play in the second half. No points for the first time this season. Will Richard, he got one to go down from 3, but still not enough from him. And just too many spells there where they went on a run. The Gators, could not stop the run. A 17-3 run in the first half, and like I said, a 20-5 run in the second half. They let them shoot 75%, 59% for the game. That's a recipe for disaster. And now they're 0-2 to start SEC play. Come back home against Arkansas on Saturday, and that game will be at 4 p.m. in the O-Dome. But the Gators need to get back on the winning track, Nick, because it's not going to get any easier as they get through SEC play.
No, it's turned into quite a good league. Poor God Todd, not a great start.
Well, and that's unfortunate. Most of his portal additions have actually, they played well. It's the one guy that he had coming back that wasn't a portal addition, Riley Kugel, that just has not lived up to the expectations. And I think the production that everybody expected from him, I had sat next to an NBA scout at the Kentucky game, and he was puzzled that he was coming off the bench. But that's just kind of where he's at in the season that he's had so far. If Riley Kugel was playing at the level that was first team preseason all SEC expectations, I think Florida would be in a better place right now as a team. So they obviously need more from him. They need to get better on defense. They got to fix free throw shooting, and they got to get a win in SEC play. So
free throws haven't been free, Zach.
No, they have not. They have not. But enough of that. That's our. That's our
it is
5
free.
minutes.
Liking and subscribing is free, Zach.
Yes.
Don't miss your shot from the charity stripe. Hit that like button. Hit subscribe. Share it with your friends. Share it with your mama.
Yeah, we are back. There is going to be a week at some point in January where I'm going to make Nick take some time off. So I don't know if that'll interrupt our shows, but we'll definitely be back with a lot more episodes this month and throughout 2024. I hope everybody had a happy holidays and a happy new year. Appreciate you guys joining us today, commenting on the live stream, and we will see you guys next week.